Imagine a single medicine that transformed cancer from a death sentence into a chronic, manageable disease for millions of people. A drug that didn't poison tumors, didn't burn them with radiation, but instead removed the brakes from the human immune system and let the body do the killing itself. A drug so powerful that it redefined oncology, rewrote clinical trial design, and reshaped the business strategy of the world's largest pharmaceutical companies. A drug that now generates over $25 billion a year, more than any medicine in history. This is the story of a molecule that began as a risky immunology experiment, survived decades of skepticism, and ignited the modern immunotherapy revolution. This is the story of Keytruda, pembrolizumab. Every blockbuster drug starts somewhere, from cluttered labs on handwritten notes to kitchen tables at night. Welcome to Blockbuster Drugs, the series that uncovers the human stories behind the world's most powerful medicines. These breakthroughs didn't start in skyscrapers or billion-dollar boardrooms. They began in tiny labs at kitchen table biotech startups and in the minds of young scientists chasing ideas no one else believed in. Through failures, reinventions, and sheer persistence, from accidental encounters to tireless experiments, this is Blockbuster Drugs. Section 1. What is Keytruda? Who developed it? How big does it get? Keytruda is a monoclonal antibody approved by the FDA in 2014 for advanced melanoma, a disease that, until then, had almost no effective treatments. But what followed was unprecedented. Keytruda became the single most successful oncology drug ever created. Peak annual sales over $25 billion. Total lifetime revenue of hundreds of billions of dollars. 40-plus approved indications across more than 20 cancer types and millions of patients worldwide. The company behind Keytruda was Merck, known as MSD outside the United States, a legacy pharmaceutical giant that had spent decades searching for its next defining breakthrough. By 2024, Keytruda alone contributed 46% of Merck's total revenue, so large that the company's growth, pipeline priorities, and post-patent strategy all orbit around it. Entire research divisions were restructured around it. Clinical trials were redesigned to test combinations with it. Competitors were forced to pivot or perish. But Keytruda's true power lies not in its sales, but in how it works. Section 2. The biological idea behind Keytruda, PD-1, and immune checkpoints. To understand Keytruda, you need to understand a single, elegant idea. Cancer doesn't always hide from the immune system. Sometimes it turns it off. The immune system has built-in checkpoints, molecular brakes that prevent excessive immune activation and autoimmunity. One of the most important is PD-1, or programmed death. 1, a receptor found on T cells. When PD-1 binds to its partner, PD-L1, the T cell receives a clear message: stand down. Don't attack. Cancer cells exploit this pathway. They cloak themselves in PD-L1, effectively putting on an invisibility shield. The immune system sees the cancer, but is ordered not to act. Keytruda changes that. By binding PD-1, Keytruda blocks the brake. T cells are reactivated. Immune surveillance is restored. Cancer cells become visible again and vulnerable. It wasn't a poison. It wasn't a targeted toxin. It was permission. Section 3. The origin story: skepticism, failure, and immune revival. The idea of immune-based cancer therapy was not always celebrated. For decades, immunotherapy was seen as fringe science, unreliable, dangerous, and unpredictable. Early immune stimulants caused severe toxicity. Cytokine storms killed patients. Many oncologists believed the immune system simply couldn't be trusted. The PD-1 pathway was discovered in the early 1990s not in the context of cancer, but during basic immunology research aimed at understanding how immune responses are turned up by Japanese immunologist Tasuka Honjo. But a handful of scientists began to suspect something radical. What if cancer wasn't invisible? What if it was actively suppressing immunity? Merck licensed and developed an antibody, later named pembrolizumab. Early trials were small. Responses were rare but astonishing. Patients with metastatic melanoma expected to live months and saw tumors melt away. Some responses lasted years. The impossible was suddenly real. But a handful of scientists began to suspect something radical. What if cancer wasn't invisible? What if it was actively suppressing immunity? Merck licensed and developed an antibody, pembrolizumab. Early trials were small. Responses were rare but astonishing. Patients with metastatic melanoma, expected to live months, saw tumors melt away. Some responses lasted years. The impossible was suddenly real. Section 4. Hurdles in drug development and clinical trials. Keytruda's development was anything but smooth. Challenge 1. Unpredictable responders. Only a subset of patients responded. Why some lived and others didn't was initially a mystery. This forced a revolution in biomarkers, including PD-L1 expression and later tumor mutational burden. Challenge 2. Immune-related toxicities. When you release immune brakes, collateral damage can occur. Keytruda caused colitis, pneumonitis, thyroid dysfunction, and rare but severe autoimmune reactions. Managing these toxicities required new clinical playbooks. Challenge 3. Clinical trial scale. Merck ran hundreds of trials simultaneously across tumor types, stages, and combinations. Keytruda trials rewrote FDA norms, including tissue-agnostic approvals, accelerated approvals, and adaptive trial designs. Challenge 4. Competition. Bristol-Myers Squibb's Opdivo arrived first. Many thought Merck was already too late. But Merck moved faster, broader, and more aggressively. Keytruda became not just a drug, but an oncology platform. Section 5. Indications and medical impact. How Keytruda reshaped cancer care. Once Keytruda proved itself, its expansion was relentless. Approved cancers now include melanoma, non-small cell lung cancer, head and neck cancer, bladder cancer, gastric cancer, esophageal cancer, cervical cancer, triple-negative breast cancer, and more. Keytruda fundamentally reshaped oncology by moving immunotherapy into first-line treatment, enabling rational combination regimens, expanding use in earlier stage disease, and supporting adjuvant and neoadjuvant strategies aimed at durable, long-term cancer control rather than late-stage rescue. For patients, this meant longer survival, durable responses, fewer side effects than chemotherapy, and hope where none existed before. Some patients remain cancer-free years after treatment, and something almost unheard of before immune checkpoint inhibitors. Section 6. The economics, pricing, dominance, and oncology dependence. Keytruda is a medical triumph and a financial juggernaut. Annual cost per patient can exceed $150,000. Global oncology budgets now revolve around checkpoint inhibitors. Merck built its entire growth engine around Keytruda. Combination trials with nearly every major oncology asset. Licensing deals designed to plug into Keytruda. Defensive strategies to extend exclusivity into the 2030s. Critics argue that oncology pricing is unsustainable. Supporters argue that extending life, sometimes by years, is priceless. Regardless of perspective, one thing is undeniable. Keytruda became the economic backbone of modern oncology. Section 7. The future and legacy beyond Keytruda. Keytruda will eventually face biosimilars. Competition will intensify. Margins will shrink, but its legacy is secure. Keytruda validated immune checkpoint blockade. Open the door to next-generation immunotherapies. Change how the FDA evaluates cancer drugs. Redefined what durable response means. Modern oncology is no longer about killing cancer alone. It's about teaching the immune system to remember. Keytruda didn't just treat cancer. It changed how we think about it. Keytruda's story reminds us that the greatest medical breakthroughs don't come from brute force. They come from understanding biology deeply enough to work with it. At Blockbuster Drugs, we explore the science, ambition, and human stories behind the medicines that reshape the world. If you enjoyed this deep dive into Keytruda, the drug that taught the immune system to fight cancer, please like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Your support helps us bring more long-form stories from the intersection of science, medicine, and history. Thank you for watching. The next blockbuster is already in development.